Kind of interesting too. But we didn't really talk about this one.
Alright, we're live. Right, we're live. Hi, this is WordsPerGameCast. It's a show where we talk about various topics related to gaming and tech.
Today is October 5th, 2020.
Today we're going to be talking about the min-max culture in single-player video games, Hades' procedural generation system, or I guess lack thereof, and Super Mario 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm Kamado, and this is...
I'm Dotso.
Yes, co-hosts. Haha.
Okay.
Alright, let's get to it.
So the first topic, kind of just to explain it a bit, there are these two topics that I saw online on Our True Gaming today.
Are they both on our True Gaming?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So basically the long and short of it... Oh shoot, the camera's not on. I was making thumbnails. So the long and short of it is so I like playing at my own pace. Right. And normally, and this is talking specifically about single player games. So I play very slowly. I'll sit on it a month, but the thing is, like, I'll play it for a few times. Sometimes I'll sit on it for a month and go back and tinker around a bit. The problem arises is the fiendish nature of gamers when anything drops in mastered a game. So
I think that was misphrased.
Yeah.
But the point is that like people get annoyed if you play suboptimally or something, right?
Yeah. It's all about optimizing the game and getting as good as you can really, really quickly, right?
Yeah. And you're playing it quote unquote wrong if you don't choose to play in that way.
So many gamers have this dictatorial about them about how the game should be played, and if you're not doing it that way, then what are you even playing for? I think you'll definitely see this if you play even like single player games.
Yeah.
Like a lot of older titles where if you don't do or like don't find like the hidden secrets that might let you unlock something down the line or something.
This one is specifically for this one is for online games.
Yeah. So there's for online games, and there's also but he also mentions that it doesn't only happen with pure competitive games. It happens with PvE games too, like Rust. And also I would say in particular for single player, where I would say for online games, if you try to do something too off meta, or if you play in a suboptimal way, it just gets characterized as like trolling. Right, because it's like typically people have to win by playing together.
Yeah.
I think this is also true for games like Among Us, where if you start playing in a way that's not really consistent with winning the game, people will get really, really annoyed with you.
Sure, because, cooperative win conditions and whatnot.
But, and this was the second post about it, I think gamers spend too much time researching games and not playing them. Both of these titles were kind of confusing, honestly. So I believe in the Twitch YouTuber era of gaming, there seems to be a shift towards doing everything perfect. Doing everything 100% super duper hard mode with no deaths at 999 max stats.
A bit hyperbolic there.
Sure, I mean...
Point taken.
I was playing Skyrim and I was constantly worried that my character was subpar. Do I take this one-handed skill? Yada yada yada. I don't think it really matters. Gamers constantly look up spreadsheets, guides, and forums looking for the best builds and characters, the SSS plus tiers, and really when it comes down to it, any character and any build will work. You might have to work a little harder, but you know, you can just get better at the game. And that's...
Well, that first response. I mean, the writing
projection and confirmation both.
The writing of this post was very defensive.
This one was a more popular one. I think it's because it was shorter.
They're both kind of about the same thing. It's kind of interesting to see two posts in the same day about this issue.
Yeah, I think one probably led to the other, right?
Yeah. What he mentions about the Twitch YouTube era of gaming, I think there's an element of truth to that. We can go into in a bit more depth. And that, like, Twitch has fundamentally transformed a lot of single-player games into, like, pseudo-competitive experiences. Yeah. Because you're not just alone in your living room with no witnesses except your little brother, like, nagging you from behind anymore, right? If you see someone playing, like, Skyrim on Twitch, they're usually playing to, like, like a pretty large audience, right?
Yeah, and there's like gimmick runs and stuff that people are doing too.
As a streamer, you're incentivized to play efficiently because otherwise you're gonna get like I don't know, 10,000 mouth breathers spamming in chat that you're like playing so optimally, you're missing the best sword in the game, and you don't want to. You obviously want to get that stuff because you want it to be a good experience.
Right.
Plus, you don't want to be someone who's seen as a quote unquote bad gamer. And like, I mean, there's obviously like pushback on both fronts, but like, fundamentally, it transforms the single player experience into something of a more.
It's more competitive.
I think competitive is almost the wrong word though, right? It's optimizing.
Yeah.
It just incentivizes that behavior.
Like breaking the game.
Yeah.
Like basically going over its mechanics with a fine comb, seeing all the little points of weaknesses, and then like ripping it apart essentially.
Well, really simply, it's because you don't want to be seen as a bad gamer, and you don't want to miss things and be called bad, basically. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the same point, but you know what I mean.
There's another aspect to this too where playing through the game optimally, like let's say like that's one level of it, right?
Yeah.
Like when the game first comes out, no one can blame you for missing a secret,
Right.
not doing a tutorial message right, maybe even getting stuck, right? I think getting stuck on a game is a sin if you're broadcasting it, if it's a game that's already been out for like even 2 days. Because even if a game's been out for 2 days and it's like a popular one, like Cyberpunk 2077, people will know everything about the game already.
Are you talking about like a puzzle section or like a difficulty and gameplay section or what?
Yeah, like anything, anywhere where you get stuck. Like maybe for Cyberpunk 2077, right? You get stuck because you don't know where you're supposed to go next. Or maybe there's like a phrase for how you're supposed to trigger a secret subquest that maybe you weren't paying attention to. Maybe there's like an Easter egg that was really obvious to a lot of other people that you don't really pick up on. And then the game gets kind of ruined for if you're playing too slowly or if you're playing like a couple days after, because your chat's just going to be yelling at you the whole time being like, hey, why do you miss the secret? Hey, there's a secret if you go here.
So you're saying that the shelf life of the games also factor in why people are way more competitive and min-maxy about it.
Yeah.
Because if it's already been out for... I guess, no, that makes sense too. Because like, let's say you're like 2 days behind or something.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, you're on like Act 2 and some other streamers on like Act 7.
Yeah.
Or most people are like finishing up the game while you're in the halfway point.
Yeah.
Then not only does it become less fun because you're kind of like missing out in like the giant collective experience, you're a little behind, but like that dramatically increases like the rate of spoilers. That dramatically increases, that worsens your perception of how people perceive you. And like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
It's because also as a spectator, if you have information that the person you're watching doesn't, right?
Yeah.
The streamer, then it looks really bad if they're not doing the obvious optimal thing. Like maybe there's a triple jump, wall jump on Mario 64 that lets you bypass a big chunk of the level.
No, yeah.
And they're like not doing it.
Especially if they're losing. Like,
Yeah.
let's say, like, just an example, there's some like really hard boss, and it's like they're just like bashing their head against it over and over and over again. And it's some like, if you were annoyed enough, you might just type in, "Dude, you just missed like the armor drop like
Yeah.
like 5 minutes ago. You could just go back there and you'd have a much better chance."
Yeah. And
It's
this is
frustrating to hear, obviously.
And this is obviously stemming from, like, we're attributing this kind of min-maxing thing to, like, Twitch and YouTube, right?
Yeah.
It kind of pushes towards mastery. It pushes towards optimization, towards understanding the systems. And that's on the Twitch side, right? You want to be the person who plays through the games first so that you can't be made fun of. And even if you do play through games like later, then you're kind of at the mercy of your chat if you do get stuck. Because games are a lot harder. You can get stuck on a lot of places, right? So that's the Twitch side. But there's also the other side, which is the YouTube side.
Okay.
Twitch is more about like live streaming content, right?
YouTube, you'd see like what? Are you saying like the site that's a lot of like guides, a lot of like this is the most broken build ever, that kind of thing?
That's closer to it. So like Twitch is more like you see raw gameplay, raw footage. You're just getting through a playthrough. You don't want to look like so you're a bad player when you're playing just regularly on that, right?
Sure.
But on the other side, there's a YouTube side, where it's much more concept driven, but it's kind of also about mastering the game, like playing through Dark Souls with with a guitar or something.
Yeah.
There's like we played through Super Mario Sunshine recently, and do you know what one of the challenges is for that? Playing through Super Mario Sunshine
Without flood? That one?
without getting a single coin.
Oh, wow.
Can you beat Super Mario Sunshine without picking up a single coin? And then they just make a montage video of that. So they're like more...
I don't know if that's a YouTube set. I was going to go into that as well. It's like... It's the opposite side of what we're talking about for sure, though. Like, the wanting to optimize versus, like... Usually it's like the people who are so good that you intentionally gimp yourself.
Yeah.
In order to, like, make it even more exciting.
That
Right.
that would happen for Sekiro.
Like,
as
intentionally suboptimal to show that you're so skilled that, like, you can... That on the player part of it, you can, like... Be that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was not very eloquent, but I think it
No,
was
but
clear.
yeah, like Sekiro came out. That's a game that's notorious for being difficult, right?
Yeah.
And I think like a week after we get the first wave, which is speedruns.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, like this person took 13 hours to beat Genichiro.
Mm-hmm.
I can beat it in like, I could beat the game twice in that time or something. And after that, like a week after that, came like more the gimmick builds, gimmick content. I remember someone was trying to beat the game like without using any of the special abilities or something.
Yeah.
Like they would like not use controls. Like
The thing is,
without attacking, I think was one of them, only parrying.
a lot of this is a perception issue as well, right? Because it's like the Instagram effect, where like when people post on social media, they
That's a good way of putting
they
it.
tend to post like the sides, or the thing that filters to the top is the most impressive, the most visual spectacle,
Yeah.
the most, and it's what people self-select to post up as well, right?
Yeah.
But then like if you're Johnny Gamer and you're looking at Twitch and YouTube and stuff, and it's like, oh wow, everything I'm seeing is like optimized play or ultra optimized play in GIMP runs.
Yeah, they're like
Occasionally
really
there's
good.
like some people who are like more casual and trying to game out, but usually like if you're a streamer, you're probably above average as a gamer. Generally speaking, I'd be comfortable making that generalization.
Unless you have like a lot of personality, because
Yeah,
that's
I mean that
carry.
compensates too. But like, so it's no wonder that people feel this way.
Yeah.
What I don't get is feeling ridiculed when you're playing single player in private, because I don't think I'd feel that way. But I can see that.
No, absolutely you can. Like, let's say Path of Exile,
Okay.
right? And it's like you know how to play Path of Exile really well. You know for a fact that like.
You're talking about the hypothetical you, right? Because I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that.
Oh no, yeah. Like, let's say hypothetically, like. You're playing Path of Exile. I don't play Path of Exile, right? So I wouldn't really know. But let's say like you know more about the game than I do, but you've told me that like the first step is getting to endgame, and getting to endgame means leveling up your character all the way, right?
Not all the way, but yeah.
Or like most of the way. But that means, or like blitzing through the main content, like the campaign missions and whatnot. But what that entails is skipping a lot of the mobs that are in your way, and just blitzing towards those like specific objectives that you need to hit, right?
Right, if you're being efficient, yeah.
But for me, if I went into the game, I'd just probably play like a noob and just like attack all the minions and stuff. It'd probably take me like 3 times longer to get to the end of the campaign than it did for you, right?
Yeah, but that'd be totally fine. I don't see where like negative self-image comes into that unless you have someone over your shoulder like saying that's not how you should be playing, you're playing poorly. Or you're just saying that's like your
No,
that
it's
be an
like
internal voice in your
yeah,
head?
like in my own head, I'd be thinking like, oh wow, I waste so much more time. I'm so much worse at the game. Even though Path of Exile, there's like no multiplayer component to start from shooting.
That's a bad example in some ways though, because I get what you're saying, right? But because Path of Exile has the benchmark of seeing other players' performances, so it's kind of like a pseudo online game anyway. But like something like The Witcher 3, would you feel bad if you knew that like your friend was like, I don't know, 4 hours ahead of you in that game and was playing much more optimally? I don't think so.
Witcher 3. That game's like really narrative driven. I don't know.
I think the more
depends.
skill expression a game has, maybe the more you're at risk of feeling that way. Because like the example people used in these two, one of these two comments was Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
Skyrim, I would feel like is almost at one of the ends where you really I'd find it really hard to feel that way. Because Skyrim is extremely not really about skill expression, in my opinion. It's just more about exploring, finding stuff, choosing what you're gonna like focus on. Finding, and then like the difficulty isn't really pronounced in that game unless like if you run a bunch of mods, maybe it gets a lot harder. But like,
what would it look like if? Why would you imagine someone would optimize the game? Because that's how I played the game. I optimized it a lot. Remember?
I don't know if they just wanted to make combat like a non-factor, or it is a kind of gamer fantasy, right? To be so over-leveled that you can kind of steamroll through the content. But
even if I was doing that, I wouldn't feel bad about not being as strong as like a different streamer that I was watching or something. It's kind of odd, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's more applicable to PvP games, PvE games, maybe certain like single player games, but I think that's also much more applicable if you're a streamer or like broadcasting your content.
I mean, you get what I mean too, though, right? Like the more story driven and the less skill expression / actual comparison between other players there is in the game, the harder it is to feel that way.
Yeah.
Like let's say like I don't know, if a game had like a leaderboard and you could always see your friends' scores compared to your own, I understand how you could feel that way, right? Like, oh wow, this guy's like constantly getting like double my point value. Like every stage, because like it always shows you like your friends' performance.
I mean, that was basically space chem for us.
Right.
You should go for more concrete examples.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking about like, I don't know, something like Slay the Spire runs or something, but I didn't want to, I felt it'd be weird to name drop a game. But yeah.
Space Chem was like that, where I started to get really competitive and optimizing towards like the fastest number of cycles for completing a puzzle.
Yeah.
I think a game that would not work really well with it was like narrative-driven games like Journey. Like, who cares if you're better at playing Journey than someone else?
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Games that are much more about skill expression, like you said, like League of Legends is a really big one.
Yeah.
I can't really think of single-player games that have that kind of single-player skill expression. Maybe the equivalent would be, hey, I played through God of War in God of War mode.
Well, something simple would be like, I don't know, for Wind Waker, you know how you can get that super special ultra move? If you bring the Knight's Crest to the swordsman trainer guy, and then you do a thing where you have to like get 100 or something consecutive hits on it without getting hit.
Do you get a special move for that?
Yeah, you get the super...
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, you don't even have the super whatever move. You couldn't even do like that challenge to get it. Kind of thing.
Or if there's an easier way out of a challenge, like let's say you could.
Oh yeah, that does bother me. Like,
or if they cheese it.
Yeah, if there's like an encounter that I remember really fondly because it was like a wall, and I was like really excited to see someone play it.
Yeah.
And then like they cheese it or something, I'm like, oh come on, I wanted to see.
I think there's this
adversity.
Yeah, there's this aspect of.
But that's kind of getting off topic, isn't it?
Well, just as like a small side note, there's like this aspect of doing hard things and then
right
kind
way.
of like doing like a head nod if they do like a really hard thing that you've done as well. Like, hey, I beat Celeste, I beat all Seasides, I beat everything in that game. I
mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think that is really one of the big appeals of like watching streaming content in general, right? Like when God of War came out, what we tried to do was like beat it as fast as we humanly possibly could, because then our reward was then tuning into a stream and we got to see streamers do it without feeling like it was spoiled, which is like a really fun motivator. But to get back to the topic at hand, there was like an element here that I kind of wanted to tease out. It's common to both of these, where I don't know if you noticed, it's I just want to explore the game and try out all the tools and mechanics available, right? And here it was something like gamers constantly look up spreadsheet guides, forums, tier lists, yada yada.
It's like
right?
spoilers, yeah.
It's the idea, common to both of these people who feel this way, is that like gaining too much information is almost anathema to the kind of fun they want to have. Like it takes away the fun of exploring if you're just gonna rely on like, it's like the same type of people who are really upset about meta decks. You know what I mean? Or like looking up build guides in TFT, that kind of thing. It's like you're sapping the joy out of the exploration part of the game.
Taking out the wonder.
Yeah, like
Okay.
it's like, yeah.
All right, as an example, when I played through Oblivion, there's like, okay, I think you had to basically call it an exploit where you can invent a spell that'll max out people's disposition towards you for a single second.
Yeah.
So that even if they're really angry at you and attacking you, you can cast that spell on them, talk to them, and then make them de-aggro you.
Right, because the way it worked was, if you talk to them, all that matters is their disposition for you at the moment you talk to them.
Yeah.
You can actually see their faces go from like super smiley to after you talk to them go really
and then
angry
they
again.
hate you again.
Yeah.
I think it's to the point where a lot of, like, if I started getting attacked, they would also attack me because they hated me so much. But I looked that up. Yeah. So.
Oh, you looked that up? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't discover that. It was more like a confluence of mechanics. That's like the first game I wiki walked. I also looked up basically every assassin quest because there's like a secret trigger to a lot of those quests. I didn't want to miss it.
See, actually, now you're mentioning like what we did in the past. I remember feeling this exact way back in like middle school, high school, where like it was actually right off of you saying that that's the first game you wiki rocked, right?
Yeah.
The next game that was kind of like that we played was Fallout 3, right? And I remember back in Oblivion, I played this really, really, really terrible unarmed build that like I had to like fist and palm people for like 10 minutes till you kill like a random mook.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do that in Fallout 2. There's like an unarmored like perks and stuff.
But you don't know if it's good or not. You want to like.
I figured it was okay. And you know what you did? You were like, oh, the best unarmed weapon in the game is over here, the Deathclaw gauntlets.
Yeah.
And you can get it from like almost the beginning of the game. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Well, maybe I'll get to it later. Then you start getting aggravated. You're like, why are you doing like, I don't know, do you want to do 50% less damage than you could be doing? Like, is this fun for you? And like some variations of that because we were in high school and kind of immature.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, fine. I went and I got it. And I was like doing a lot more damage with these stupid little dinosaur hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. It did kind of kill the game for me though, because I was like, you told me that those are the best weapons I could possibly have, right? I didn't discover it or anything.
Yeah,
and
it would have been way more fun.
And in my
if
head,
you discovered
I was just thinking like, I'm never gonna get stronger than this. There's nothing to strive for anymore for my stupid gimmick build that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like that was actually, I did stop playing that character very shortly after I got those gauntlets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember for that game as well. I found out what basically the strongest small arms gun in the game was. It was like this rifle that you can get at the Washington Monument or something, and you can kind of just go there immediately and get the gun.
It's like in a museum or something, right?
Yeah, and it basically has like no inaccuracy when you're free aiming it, and you could just use it and get through basically the entire game with just that gun alone. And that's just how I played through the game. It's like this invincible god mode character.
You kind of pushed back against that after a while, right? Like you stopped wiki walking so much.
And in Oblivion, just for one other example, you can get the quest item, the Honor Blade of Chorrol, I think, and that's the best sword in the game.
Okay.
And then I also had Martin and the other monk dude as part of my entourage for most of the game.
Right, because you looked it up and you saw that if I didn't
there's
like a phase of the quest where you have to escort them from point A to point B, but if you never take them to point B, you have two invincible party companions that you can always use like meat shits.
I did start to push back against that because I think what it was back then I was really not confident in my ability to I didn't want to make the wrong choice. I didn't want to screw my character over permanently. And that was like kind of a really big fear that pushed me towards, all right, fine, just give me the right answer.
Yeah.
And then I'll figure it out later.
I think it came off of like one of those old school JRPGs, and you found out after the fact that you're like, oh, I I can't do this thing anymore.
Yeah.
Because I didn't talk to a NPC all the way back in like chapter 1.
I think it was Final Fantasy X2, where there were like really specific triggers for getting the secret weapons.
Okay.
Maybe I might be remembering. It was a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but I think that's what it was, something like that that triggered your desire to
13?
look up all that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays, I prefer to not get spoiled and try to figure out the system for myself.
Yeah.
I don't really care about. I care more about having it spoiled for me. Like I went into God of War basically blind.
Yeah.
Right. I went into Last of Us 2 basically blind.
Yeah.
And that's from a systems perspective. The other aspect to this is also, and this isn't exclusive to video games. This is like for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Games really do have a short shelf life to talk about them, but they also have. Basically, as soon as it's out for a video game, you're basically vulnerable to spoilers. So it kind of also incentivizes you to go through content, not just as soon as it comes out, but also as quickly as possible, so that your own experience of the game can be untarnished.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to avoid, or you just want to consume that content, because that's the game you're playing.
That's a large part of the enjoyment, where you get to feel like you're part of like this
This
giant
big
communal experience of like having fun with something.
And I think that's part of what the researching end is as well. You know, I'm pretty sure that I've been thinking of playing Terraria a little bit recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if I do play Terraria, I'm probably going to be relying a lot more on looking up stuff and like figuring out what weapon I want to work towards. But I mean, for Terraria, it's kind of designed like that. I'd say there's certain games that are more like you should wiki walk it, and there's other games where you kind of shouldn't. And as like one other example, we played Hades recently.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of went out of my way not to look stuff up about the game because the narrative stuff has been complimented a lot and there's a lot of dialogue.
And you don't want to get spoiled on something.
Yeah,
Right.
but there's actually really specific ways that the boon system works where they're not random. Like if you pick up the Zeus boon, who gives like chain lightning abilities, the abilities that he offers you is conditional on some of the abilities that you got before. And I had to look that up to understand it because there's no other way I would have learned that basically.
Yeah.
I had to tap into the wiki information.
Some of it makes sense though. Like I think it's less like, oh wow, it's gated and they never told you, but it's like some of it's kind of intuitive in the sense that like, you know, one of them is like, oh, all of your lightning effects also apply jolted, right?
Yeah.
But that's unlocked after you get X, Y, or Z ability. But that makes sense intuitively, right? That you wouldn't want all your lightning abilities give jolted before you even have a lightning ability.
I mean, that does make sense.
I think a lot of them were like that.
Okay, but one thing that I think kind of screwed us over was Titan's Blood. So you get Titan's Blood from killing Meg.
The first boss.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of spoilery, but...
Oh yeah, sorry. With every type of weapon, and I think there's like 5 in total. And you can use Titan's Blood to unlock a different variation of your base weapon. So it's kind of like the most significant way of like kind of changing up your playstyle and trying something different.
Yeah.
Like one of them makes all of your arrows like homing. They're like really fun versions of the same weapon type, right? But I spent all my Titan's Blood on this one gimmick thing, and I had no idea that they're actually the most precious resource in the game, and they just give you a couple at the start. Oof. It would have been nice to know that that was actually really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
If there was like a spoiler-free tips thing that
just popped up and told you.
Yeah, I mean that's a downside. You will play suboptimally, and you will make sometimes permanent, irrevocable decisions.
I think it depends on the game. I know we're getting a bit lost in the weeds on this topic, but it is kind of...
we should move on soon.
It is kind of interesting, because, like, I remember feeling this way about specific games. Like, Dark Souls, in particular, was, like, the big game I felt this way, where I was, like, really scared I'd screw up my character.
Well, yeah, leveling up is
what do I
hard.
put points in? Like, what do you... Like, what?
Yeah.
This is so confusing. Like, alright, the only real guide I had is, like, some of these weapons have, like, stat requirements, so I'll go for those. And then it's like... But as, like, a dumb middle school gamer, I'm like, I don't ever want to put points in health. What am I, some noob?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna get hit.
Yeah.
I just want more and more damage, and that's like suboptimal. And like, I don't know. And then there's like limited resources for upgrading your weapons, and I'm like putting points in like some rinky-dink thing I found in like
it's
first
scary.
It's like, wait, is this even worth putting points into? Is there gonna be like better sword that I think is cooler a little later, and I've expended too many resources that may or may not be consumable? Should I look up if there's a limited amount of this resource?
Yeah.
Where do I farm this resource if I want to upgrade something else?
Right.
And like, it's true that, I don't know. Some games definitely lend itself towards wiki walking a lot more.
Yeah.
We can leave it at that.
I think, and I guess that's like the end note. It's definitely games that have much more permanent costs.
Yeah.
But that's just only one aspect of it.
And I think players that favor the exploration phase of games, where you get to like look for new combinations and stuff and try to figure out what's strong on your own, feel a lot more slighted by this. And I guess there was one aspect of this we don't really have to cover, but this person was talking about online games in particular and feeling outclassed. And
there's
friends are annoyed with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're like, let's say you're playing League of Legends and you want to try out a new character, a new build.
Yeah.
You know for a fact that it really might not be optimal, but you want to try it just to see, just to understand.
Or it might be really good, but you know you're gonna be bad for a while.
Yeah, and then like you're gonna have to drag your friends down for at least a little while, and that feels really bad, especially if your friends are only. We had this issue with me actually.
Or if you know you're the weak link kind of.
Yeah, because that's actually an issue with me, because the way I play League of Legends is I basically one trick a character, Malzahar for right now.
Yeah.
And I play it all the time for ranked and normals, so my tryhard switch never goes to neutral.
Yeah.
I think for you prefer like exploring things and then focusing in on it and then honing it, but I basically only do that once, so there's sometimes like points of friction.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm an extreme case, but yeah.
All right.
But anyways.
Well, let's move on then. I think it was good to start with this one.
All right.
It was kind of a good topic.
Next one is...
Erase these tabs. I guess we're going to end up talking about Hades again anyway, so maybe we should just jump to that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Hades procedural generation. We could keep this one shorter.
Yeah. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Hades has procedural generation. People are asking about it. And it,
There was an article that they released. It's one of those cases where I think the conversation kind of went besides the point. I think they just wanted to showcase like the tools they use at their disposal and their logic for creating some, what's it called? Procedural generation. It's like, hey, this is like almost like a dev diary. Like this is like some like it says behind the scene look at how we design these things, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the article was a bit effusive.
Rock paper shotgun.
Yeah.
I think they're friends. I don't really know. They've been around for a while.
Turns out there's a good deal of design work.
But anyways, get to the
meat of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, it inspired a conversation that I thought was kind of interesting, where one of the people were basically saying that, well, I feel like the procedural generation wasn't even like that big of a factor in this game. Like, it doesn't seem like it was that incredible or anything. I don't understand why we're praising this so much. And it was a back and forth between this guy, Vermilion Ace, and Smashing 71. Smashing 71 was raising the point where, like, yeah, there is a lot of meaningful design here. Like, you have to, like, it requires spatial awareness, where, like, first you can just dash willy-nilly, but then when you enter the second level, which is, like, has, like, bits of lava, rivers, and stuff, suddenly you have to pay attention to where you're dashing, because you might get hit a little bit.
That's not... Yeah.
It's kind of true, and, like, there's, like, these little touches where, like, the example he gives is... Yeah, what I just said. They introduce you to bomb lobbers that require you to easily dodge, but in Act 2 they show up for real, and your dodge is much uglier because you can't just dodge in any direction, you have to dodge away from like the lava and stuff. In my experience that was kind of true, but because lava has a bit of forgiveness anyway, like if you dash onto lava accidentally and you dash off it immediately, don't you only take like maybe 2 ticks to 0 damage.
No, you can take damage from lava. That's pretty significant. I don't think.
No, if you dash on lava and dash out.
No, you don't take any damage if you do it immediately.
Right.
But I don't think it's really correct to say that Hades has procedural generation, except in a very like surface level way.
Yeah.
Like Splunky has procedural generation.
Yeah.
But also, I think it just, for me, the greater point is just that I don't think procedural generation is actually all that important to variability. Like,
Yeah.
it depends on the game and the way it's executed, but I would argue that Splunky and Splunky 2, even though it does have procedural generation, I don't think that it significantly alters the variability of the base game.
You want to expand on that?
Like, Splunky has procedural generation in that no level will probably look the same, but you hit a lot of the same set pieces over and over again.
Sure. They just
Like,
move around.
if you play Act 1, you're gonna hit an arrow trap, a spider hanging from the ceiling, some moles, and those dumb yellow armadillos. But even though the situations and things are changed from run to run, even though you're moving them around, the variability is capped because you're still seeing the same stuff all the time. It's like,
Sure. But the point is that you can't... It goes against the idea of using rote memorization to, like,
yeah,
eliminate all the chance. There's a certain level of rote memorization and muscle memory as you see, like, small nodes over and over again. Like, oh, this is an arrow trap where I have at least 5 steps of clearance. I know I could jump through that without having to do anything.
I mean, isn't it
Right.
the same thing though? It's like, instead of memorizing the entirety of a level like in a regular Mario platformer, if you're speedrunning it,
Yeah.
is you just separate that into discrete chunks.
That's a way of looking at it for sure. But I think the argument is that for games like Splunky, when you have a lot of those nodes collide, then it creates a lot of variability. Like, all right, I know how to deal with the arrow trap, I know how to deal with a mole, but in this particular instance, we have an arrow trap, a mole, and 2 armadillos and a caveman in play. And 2 of them are behind me, 1 is in front of me, and maybe it'll create like a chaotic event that you haven't seen before.
No, but I would say that it doesn't get to that stage. And it doesn't get to that level of randomness or variability where even though those situations that you see in run to run don't repeat, you won't get something as crazy as a like situation you just outlined. It's kind of like the bands of variabilities are actually much closer than they initially appear because they're like chunks that
I
you
agree.
run into instead of, they're not Venn diagrams that overlap and create different situations, although there can be.
Yeah.
But I would say, especially if you see how consistent speedrunners are, they're probably just going through the game over and over and over again and able to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think Slay the Spire is another good example of your point, where you're saying that procedural generation isn't super necessary for high amounts of variability, because Slay the Spire has some procedural generation, obviously, with like the routing between encounter to encounter and stuff, right?
yeah,
But it keeps each of those encounters fully realized, right? Like the 3 crow cultists is always going to be 3 crow
in Act
cultists.
2.
It's not going to be cultist plus like 2 other random units.
Right,
They're
right.
not
They're
random
discrete.
encounters.
Yeah.
They're nuggets that are always going to be the same. Like the night guy with the cleric.
Yeah, or sometimes you'll hit Snecko. Like,
Yeah.
maybe the order in which you hit those problems might be different,
Yeah.
but when you do enter an encounter, like those 3 cultist bird boys that you mentioned earlier, the way that you approach that situation is going to be the same, essentially.
Yeah.
This is a bad example because Slay the Spire is a deck building card game. But I guess it's like you're going to want to kill them faster because they perpetually buff themselves. If you're versing the knight and the cleric, you're gonna want to kill the cleric first because the cleric heals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it depends on what tools
There's
you
more
have at your
variability in
disposal.
Slay the Spire, I'd say, for that.
But anyway, yeah. But this is interesting because this guy was like giving like points that I think this makes sense on the tin if you read it, right?
Yeah.
And if I hadn't played the game, I would have probably quote unquote sided with this guy because I'm like, all right, he's writing pretty cogently, concisely.
Yeah.
And what he says makes a lot of sense to me, just on like reading this text level.
Yeah.
But having played the game, I can kind of see where this other guy's coming from. Where like, design's pretty basic in terms of like how much the variability of the enemy placement and stuff affects runs.
Yeah.
The terrain factors in, but it never factors in like a super meaningful way, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Like the explosives and things, you definitely have to play around them. But it's kind of just like
Yeah.
weaving in and out.
Yeah.
And it always feels exactly even if like this grenade nobule is here instead of here, right?
Mm-hmm.
In point A as opposed to point B, it doesn't really dramatically affect how I'm playing.
Yeah, I mean,
run.
you're just gonna be you kite a lot.
The
That's
boons
kinda
matter.
The game. Yeah, the boons matter,
In
but
terms
they
of
also
like,
don't matter.
how your game plays out, but like, yeah, I don't think the level design ever really dramatically shifted.
I'd say that Hades is really good, not because of the variability from run to run, because I do think that, like, we sat down and played it for, like, a couple days consecutively, but it never felt as though I was really playing it, like, the gameplay was fundamentally shifting from run to run. But
Yeah.
I'd say Hades is really good because of what it does really well, which is opening up the game gradually and just having this massive chunks of content, tons of lore, tons of characters that you can talk to,
The game
lots
feel.
of systems,
Yeah.
the feeling that you're always building towards something and not feeling as though you're done with the game, having reasons to go for another run.
Yeah.
The base combat being very responsive, even if it's really repetitive combat, it's really responsive. If it doesn't feel as though you're losing because of an unfair advantage, etc.
Because okay, I guess if we're talking about Hades a little bit right now, the game turned me off a bit in the beginning because I was thinking I wanted it to be a roguelite, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, but that's not what it is. It's like, it's more of an RPG that has roguelike elements. Because like the point of the game is that your main character is slowly getting stronger and stronger, and you get to feel that, right? And you
Yeah.
get to get a little further each time, even though you're kind of pulled back to the start. It's not like a true roguelite in the sense that you don't start from a blank slate every time, right? And like, I think my opinion of the game shifted a lot once I thought of it in those terms. Fundamentally, it's not a roguelite, but it's an RPG, action RPG game that has roguelike elements. In the same way that all of these other like FPSs in the past, remember there was like that fad where you introduce RPG systems into everything. Like you get stuff like Far Cry 3, which is fundamentally like an exploration game where you get new guns and you like use the environment and you shoot people. But the leveling system is RPG based.
Oh, like you hit numbers and stuff?
It's an FPS with RPG elements, right? For like, all right, I'm gonna upgrade this in my tier list, and suddenly I can have like extra grenades. I'm gonna upgrade this on my tier list, and I have bonuses to my unarmed combat, that kind of thing. They're introducing RPG elements to like everything. Like you still see that, right? So if I think about it in the same way, where Hades is an action RPG that has roguelike elements onto it, it made me like butthurt about the fact that
Yeah,
it's
you're not meant
true
to
roguelite.
You're not meant to beat the game in one sitting.
Yeah.
It's kind of designed around that. Actually, some person mentioned that you might not want to beat the game and get to the final boss too early because people's dialogues will get desynced.
Yeah.
So they're like talking as if you've already done 10 runs and you've talked about it with them.
No, I had that happen because I got to one of the. How wary are we of spoilers?
Just say I'll spoil the final boss or something.
Okay, this is spoilers for those who haven't gotten too far into Hades, but not like ultra spoilers. I got to like one of the endgame areas ish, in my fourth run, right? There's like this portion of the game where like Cerberus is like blocking your way, and then like your main character says like, "Oh, so this is where you've been, boy."
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I was like, what? Because I think at a certain point, Cerberus was supposed to disappear from your main hub.
Yeah.
And then you would get there and it's like, oh, this is where you've been. But he was never gone. So I was like, that was a weird line.
Yeah, because you went from, there's like multiple areas, but before that we'd only been to first two areas, but you went from like, you
the
had
first
a really...
areas to like straight to like one
yeah,
of the
because
last
you
areas.
had a really good run.
And
But
I didn't hit that intervening checkpoint. But yeah.
anyways, let's go to the last topic.
Okay, what was that one again?
Oh, Super Mario.
Yeah, I don't really have that much to say about this, but I didn't think I had that much to say about the other things, and we can find
Where
a
is
way.
it? It's gone.
I mean, it's right here. This
Where?
Super Mario 35.
No, I didn't save it.
It's here, the tab.
Oh, Super Mario 35. I want to talk about a different part of it, which is I thought the game was. I initially thought the game was dumb, because you just repeat the same areas over and over again, right?
I need myself.
But actually, the way it
I
works is super weird. No, I want to. Is there a person who's won like multiple times?
I don't know.
65 plus or whatever. So. Oh my
no.
gosh! Whatever.
You don't gotta add
I'll
one
just
on this
I'll
one?
just describe it to you.
Okay.
So what happens is it's like Tetris. What was it? Tetris 95, where you're versing like 100 people at once, right?
Sure.
But there's no ghosts. Everyone's just kind of next to each other and playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And in Tetris, if you get a line, you send the line to other people, right? But in Mario 35, let me just put on random gameplay. Sure, whatever. But in Mario 35, what you do is you send dudes to other people.
When you kill them?
Yeah.
How are
Oh, this
people
takes-
sending like Hammer Bros and stuff then?
They're killing Hammer Bros.
They're Hammer Bros and because they go to later areas.
Yeah, so if you like see these like ghosty ones,
Yeah.
those are the ones that you're sending to that they've sent to you.
Okay.
So instead of sending blocks, they send to enemies.
Sure.
So the way you're actually supposed to, sorry, we're talking about min-maxing. The way you optimize this game is
Send the more harmful enemies.
no, you get tons of coins, tons and tons of coins.
Why did because what do coins do? Power ups.
Coins let you see this like question mark thing.
Yeah.
You get like a random power up from it. You can get a mushroom, a star, a fire flower, or a POW block. And a POW
Okay.
block just clears everything on the screen, right? So he has a mushroom right now.
It's also like really out of time.
So this is red timer,
Uh-huh.
and so the timer goes to 3 increments: regular, fast timer, and red timer, which is really really fast.
Okay.
And the red timer basically goes down fast enough that you'll never be able to replenish it fast enough.
Okay.
But that's not typically the reason why people lose. When you start playing at a level that's really high, what you do is you just farm tons and tons of coins.
Okay.
The coin cap is 500.
Okay.
And if you think about how the enemies are sent to each other, right? The number of enemies that are sent to each other never goes down, if that makes sense.
If you kill a ghost, does it also send an enemy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like at a certain point,
You
if
just
you're,
want to like get the power block to send a giant wave of enemies on the other side, and they can power block in return to send a giant wave of enemies back at
yeah.
you.
But the thing is, the reason you need so many coins is like at the end game, there's frankly too many enemies to ever clear normally. Like this is reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But one of the levels, I think it was 4-1, has Lakitus, and you can farm Lakitus. And what happens is like it gets ridiculous. Like some of the people who are really good at this game, there's like 20 Lakitus on screen, all throwing Spinies, and it's impossible to get through it. But there's another mechanic here, which is if you get a fire flower or if you get hit, right? There's a brief moment where
You're invincible.
yeah, so you basically just keep spamming the coin button while just trying to run through, and it's just like this kind of endurance race where you just don't fall. You keep triggering stars and fire flowers, and keep trying to send back the enemies back at your aggressors.
Okay. I mean,
So
that
there's
sounds
like
like a
this,
totally different game.
there
if
is
people are playing it well.
inevitability in the
baked
game.
into it. Okay.
And then also there's a timer thing where if you just try to camp one location and like fire flower, you'll run out of time because all fire flower kills except for killing Bowser only give a single second.
I see.
So like right here.
If you run out of
only a
time, you
single
lose, right?
second. Yeah, you lose. You
Okay.
die. Also, you can see how many coins your enemies have with the see this little coin icon.
Yeah.
I think that means they have over 100. I'm not really, or does it mean they have max? But yeah, so it's a lot about knowing where to farm coins, where to farm like time. But farming time is not as important. But yeah, there was more depth to the game than I realized.
That's kind of interesting.
And it is, honestly, this game is way different from that original fan game that came out and got DMCA'd. Yeah.
What
so,
was their version of the battle royale?
yeah, there was like a
before?
battle royale Mario game that came out a while back, and then they got like.
Was that one that was like Mario 64 or something?
No, it was It was this game. It was Super Mario, and you just try to last or go as far as you can. And then I think he pivoted and made DMCA Royale, but
just gonna play that.
this game was apparently already in development for a while, which I can believe because of how much it borrows from the Tetris system.
Yeah.
And it is very different.
They said that the Tetris system, what's it called? They said that this predated the Tetris one, right? In development, anyway.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, that might be true. But yeah,
Is it the whole game? I was under the impression that it only cycled through a couple levels.
I think the levels it starts to cycle through, it's dependent on.
How many people are left?
No, like other players have different stages unlocked, so everyone kind of has this pool of levels that they're all drawing from.
Oh, so it's not equal.
So, but everyone has 1-1. But also, what I noticed was like as they got further into the game, more of the interesting stages started popping up. Some of the harder ones. So, yeah, I guess like it kind of makes sense as like a balancing measure.
This seems like a really good idea.
Yeah.
For like other platformers too.
Yeah.
Like Sunshine Royale, 64 Royale.
That'd
and
be
like
pretty cool.
it just like keeps sending enemies and hazards on the other side.
Yeah.
Like imagine if people were doing like, I don't know, the 70-star run or something, but like it's battle royale. Okay, 70-star would be bad for people like us who aren't like amazing at the game because it takes too long. But like that sounds very interesting.
Yeah. So that's I thought that I wrote this game off, but and like one other thing is because you unlock stages through playing the game, right?
Okay.
It's kind of an automatic balancing thing where at the beginning people probably just have like 1-1, 1-2, right?
Yeah.
But because they're playing through the level so many times,
they get better at it.
Yeah, and then they start. It's like they progressively unlock the rest of the game, instead of just ramping the difficulty straight up.
Okay.
So they get really familiar with each of the levels.
Something gained, something lost, right?
Yeah, I actually know where all the 1-up shrooms are in 1-1, 1-2 because I was like watching it for so long.
That's
Kinda
cool.
funny. Oh, he didn't go to Warp Pipe.
Was there anything else about this this topic?
No, it was more that I kind of wrote this game off earlier because I thought it looked dumb that you're cycling through the same levels.
Yeah.
And then I started to watch that people are really good at the game, and I'm like, oh wow, this game actually can get really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, games have been getting, I don't know, it's like, people like, I think there's a bit of sneering going on about like okay, now we're just going to apply Battle Royale to everything because it's a fad, right? But like, certain implementations of this idea have been very interesting.
Yeah.
And you can see kind of new things that might spawn out of it.
Yeah, there's a 1-up. 20 seconds. Yeah, so.
It's cool. I mean, that's a good stopping point for our daily conversation, our daily browse, one might say.
It's called WordsPerGameCast for now, but yeah. So this will conclude the talk show segment of the stream. I know it's not really user friendly, but we flickered the stream now.
Because
today we're gonna play Mario Kart. If you're interested in that, you can wait for the new stream to pop up for that.
Your road to 10K MMR, right?
Yeah, I like the ranking system of that game. It's really easy to just kind of grind, but yeah, that's gonna be it.
Alrighty, once again, this has been WordsPerGameCast. I don't remember if we already said that. I am Kamado.
And I'm Dotsa.
And
we're gonna take a brief intermission and be online soon.
thanks for stopping by.
I'll click the fade to black button. But our faces are still on the screen. Alright. GG.
That was a fun conversation.